Good evening, everyone. You're in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Tuesday, May the 29th, 2018. Good to have you all here for our first and only show of the week here as we continue our summer schedule. So, again, one show a week, usually on Tuesdays, unless otherwise noted. So, just keep that in mind here as we go forth throughout the summer. All right, so as always, before we get going, let me remind you all of the ways in which you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411. And, of course, you can also find us on Facebook. Just search for us under our show title, In the Spotlight 411, and then make sure that you like our fan page. Mike will not be joining us tonight. He probably won't be joining us for a few weeks here, at least. I don't know what's going on there. He's got a new job, and we don't know what the situation is going to be there. It could be just for the summer. I don't know. But, you're all used to my voice. You see me do the shows by myself with the football shows, and sometimes it feels like I'm doing this show by myself anyway. Because, sometimes it's hard for Mike to keep up with things like I do and stuff. So, but anyway, we'll muddle through. We'll get through it. So it's just me tonight, which, I'll get some feedback on later for better or worse. So we don't have a lot to get to that. I put some things in the show description that we probably won't do a lot with, including which is one of the bigger stories of the day, the whole thing with Roseanne. And the reason why I don't want to do a lot with it is because it goes into politics. And I don't like to get political on the show. I don't like to get into too many news stories on the show unless they somehow appeal to, sports or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't like to get into that stuff because I don't want to start something. Because in this day and age, if you go too far into that realm of politics and stuff like that, it just throws things off. I don't want to do that. So we will touch on the situation and then we'll move on. We'll do it very quickly. So that's what we'll do. I also put in the show description, that we always do. We'll do some stuff with WWE, but honestly, I don't think we'll do a lot because there's not a lot going on. So, so don't worry about that. So we won't do a lot with that tonight. So we'll do a little bit with that, but for the most part, we're gonna do some NBA tonight. That's gonna be the only sports stuff we do tonight. Again, I'm gonna read the baseball stuff and that because there's nothing really itching that we have to get to. We might do some baseball stuff next week, depending on what goes on over the next week. There's a couple of things I'm keeping an eye on that I think might be worth bringing up. But we'll wait till next week on that. So we'll do some NBA. We'll do the box office beat, the TV highlights, all that good stuff, and then that'll be it. So that's what we got on tap here tonight. And I'll start in entertainment, like we've been over the last couple of weeks, because that just makes the most sense. We can get through it quicker and easier and that kind of thing. So we'll start off in entertainment with the box office. And it was a weekend that it's interesting how things have materialized here. This weekend with the box office, because if you had gone back to maybe 2 months ago, if you had gone to maybe 2 months ago, I would have sat here and told you that I would not be the least bit surprised if Solo, a Star Wars story, would have struggled. I would have said, you know what, that's expected. Of everything that happened with the reshoots, director change, and generally people were going crazy. People were fearful. There was all this talk of how it was going to be a failure for Disney, and that's generally what you kept hearing was that. And now you heard some similar things with Rogue One, but it wasn't quite the same way. It was you heard about reshoots, you heard about this, you heard about that, but it wasn't quite the same thing. And by the time Rogue One had come out, the reviews were good and all that kind of thing. So things had turned around. Solo had a similar turnaround. I just don't know if it was enough. I think a lot of people were thinking this could have been Ant-Man situation where, eventually people would have been like, oh yeah, because you remember Ant-Man for Marvel, everybody thought that was going to be the first flop. I mean, Guardians was one thing. People thought Guardians might be the first flop. But Guardians didn't have what Ant-Man had with director changes and that kind of behind the scenes turmoil. So a lot of people thought Solo could do what Ant-Man did and kind of overcome that, especially once word got out that the movie had was getting good, once the movie was getting good reviews and is getting positive feedback. So, so I think a lot of people thought maybe this could turn around for Solo, especially with how things got better and how things turn around for it with the positive feedback that was slowly coming in over the number of weeks before it came out. So there was that feeling that it could turn around, but ultimately, that's not what happened. It didn't have that kind of turnaround. It didn't have a Rogue One type turnaround or even an Ant-Man type turnaround. It struggled, and especially struggled internationally because U.S. wise, you could probably spin it and go, oh, it dealt very well with everything that was going on, considering the competition. Because that's the thing that I think you do have to take into account here is that this movie faced competition that no Star Wars movie has ever had to encounter. Competition in the form of a movie that's going to make $2 billion in Avengers: Infinity War, and an R-rated movie that did $125 million, and people thought that was an underachievement, mind you, and did very well this weekend, even though it dropped considerably. So, the competition was very stiff, and you have to take that into account. But I think if it had done better overseas, Disney and Lucasfilm could have spun it and go, well, look, in the U.S., it still made $100 million over the 4 days. It still did okay. It still did okay considering the competition. They could have spinned it. They can't spin this because of how bad it did internationally. If it did better, even slightly better internationally, they could have really done well with it. They could spin the U.S. numbers. They can't spin the international numbers. And that's the problem. And as we've talked about over the last number of years, what you do overseas has become more important than what you do here. Because how many times have we seen a movie do okay over here, but internationally it does huge? We're seeing that time and time again. Where look what's happening with Infinity War. Not to say Infinity War isn't doing well over here. It is doing wonderful. But the reason why it's going to make $2 billion is because of what it's doing overseas. That's where the money is now. And, so that's really where a studio sees the potential money now, is in what you do internationally. So for Solo to do so poorly internationally, it's hard to spin the overall picture for the film. And they're gonna, they said all the right things. They didn't even try to sugarcoat. They're like, hey, we're gonna evaluate. It could have been worse. Da 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 da. It is what it is. They didn't try to sugarcoat it, which they can't. Because like I said, they can spin the U.S. numbers if they want to. Can't spin the international numbers. Can't do it. Can't do it. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's disappointing. I think that, one of the things that they're going to course correct is opening a Star Wars movie in the summer. They tried it. Now, look, I honestly think, we saw Star Wars movies open with the prequels in the summer, and they had no issues. All right. Now, things were different back then. You didn't have the kind of competition that you have now. But then again, you had that competition all year round. But Disney has made it almost like a yearly tradition now, since they opened last couple of years with Star Wars movies in December. And because of that, a lot of studios have moved their movies off. Now, this year, Jumanji and a lot of and other films did not stay away from Star Wars. They didn't fear it anymore. So we'll see if that continues to be a theme going forward. And if that's the case, will impact Star Wars. To me, I don't think the release date was that detrimental to it. I think it maybe was a little bit because of the competition. But to me, the part of this that I think really hurt it was the fact that you just had a Star Wars movie in December. If this, let's say, because the next Star Wars 9, Episode 9 does not do well till December of 2019. Let's say that you didn't open Solo until next May. let's say May of 2019, I think it would have been fine. I think it would have been fine. I think it was the 5-month turnaround that really killed it. Now you could argue, well, wait a minute. If you did that, then wouldn't it be too close to episode 9? I mean, I guess in a way, but you'd have what, 7 months in between, so it's a little bit better than the 5. I mean, it's not great, but it's a little bit better. Plus, I would argue that episode 9 is the last of that trilogy and is like an original saga film. So you don't need to sell that as much as you need to sell a spinoff of like Solo. So to me, I think that would have been a better thing to do. So to me, that quick turnaround was problematic. That's my view of it. Now, again, they can spin the U.S. numbers, and to some extent, they did a little bit. They said, "Look, we still made $100 million for the 4-day period in the U.S. You can't spin what happened overseas. Can't do it. Can't do it." So that's why I think you're watching them be like, okay, yeah, U.S. Well, yeah, we did this, but they can't go into full spin mode. They can't try to They can't try to retract the make up the PR here. They can't try to, forge some kind of agenda here and go, you know what, it ain't so bad. We did this, we did that. You can't do it because it did so bad overseas that even if you go out there and say, well, in the U.S., they're going to say, but overseas you did this, and because of that, you're never going to make up the kind of ground you need to make this a significant profit for a Star Wars film. Because remember, this cost them what, $250 million to make before marketing. With marketing, you're probably looking at what, 350, 400 million. It ain't going to make that. It's going to be a loss. And if it did even maybe what, 20, 30% better internationally, it might have had a chance to break even. So that's what I'm saying. You can't go out there with some kind of spin press release saying, well, we did this, we did that, because guess what? The first thing out of people's mouth is going to be, well, overseas, you completely and utterly bombed. And that's where and like I said earlier, that's where the money is. So Solo, and before we move on, before I kind of recap here, granted Deadpool 2 did better, did okay, dropped considerably, and Infinity War did fine. This is another Memorial Day weekend where a big movie was released and it disappointed. And that's what, 4 or 5 years going now? Pirates of the Caribbean last year, which got saved internationally, mind you. The year before that, Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass, same type of deal. We've talked about it over the last couple of years, and we'll see what happens with the 4th of July this year, which, again, as I mentioned earlier, this year they're being a little more. You could tell the studios are aware of what's going on, because you don't have anything being released. I mean, you have movies being released for the 4th of July, but week of the 29th, like Friday the 29th, week before 4th of July weekend, week before 4th of July, I should say, not much going on. Not any big, huge movies. Ant-Man and the Wasp is the big kind of 4th of July, and that comes out 2 days after the 4th. In a weekend that traditionally has done better, the weekend after the 4th. So that shows you that the studios are paying attention to this. Now let's see what they do about Memorial Day going forward. Because as you saw this May, look, think about what's happened this May at the box office. Infinity War moves out of May, moves into the last week of April. Okay, has basically the box office to itself for 3 weeks. Okay, I mean, you had the Melissa McCarthy movie that came up, but that was it, and that wasn't going to do big numbers anyway. Then Deadpool 2 comes out, and then Solo comes out. You only had 3 big movies. Think about how May used to be. And then look at the release schedule for June. Look at this weekend. Nothing huge. Next weekend has Ocean's 8, but that's about it. And then after that, you got The Incredibles. And then Jurassic World. So things pick up at that point. But then you got a little bit of a break. We talked about how the box office over the last couple of years, every weekend there was multiple big movies. You're starting to see signs that the studios are getting afraid of that now, that they've lost too much money, and they realize that they have to spread these things out, and they have to try to find another release date that's to themselves. And what become, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? Dictate what other studios do. Be that movie. Get that release date before that other studio does, so that they have to think about it, not you. Things are opening up a little bit more now after about 2 years of constant, like, hey, I don't care that you're releasing your big movie here. I think I feel so confident in my movie that we can beat you. Or at the very least, share the wealth. Not seeing that anymore. Maybe it's because of what Disney's doing, because Disney has so many movies out now that, maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But you're starting to you look at what this summer is and how kind of how it's much more separated. There's more breathing room between films. It speaks volumes compared to the last couple years. And when we talked about, I think at the end of last summer, when we previewed this summer, it didn't seem like it was going to be like that, but it is. So again, the big story was Solo and not doing so great. As I said, Deadpool 2 still did reasonably well. It dropped off considerably, but it didn't do horrible. It didn't do horribly. You expected it to drop off considerably, and Infinity War continued to do okay. So now, again, when you get into Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July weekend, you have 4-day, 5-day numbers, that kind of thing. If you look at the 3-day numbers for the weekend, Solo pulled 84.4 million, Deadpool 2 dropping first to second, 43.4. Again, 65% drop off, huge drop off, but was expected. And mind you, only has a $110 million budget, so it's not too bad there. Avengers came in from second to third, 17.2 million. And then after that, not much going on. Book Club dropped from third to fourth, 10 million. And Life of the Party, Melissa McCarthy's film, dropped from fourth to fifth with 5.3 million. That's your 3-day numbers. Your 4 days, Solo, 103 million. Deadpool 2, 53.8, which is actually really good for the 4 days, I think. Infinity War, 22.4, Book Club, 13.1, Life of the Party, 6.8, and then Breaking In jumps over 5 million with 5.5 million because of the 4-day period. And when I mentioned that Solo did not do well internationally, this is what it's made so far internationally. $69.6 million. 103 million here. It's not going to get it done. It's only up to 172.6 million. It's not going to get it done. Deadpool 2, 218.5 in domestic, 279.1 foreign. Overseas. So it's already up to almost $500 million worldwide. So they're okay on a $110 million budget. For everybody that thinks that, this movie is struggling or underachieving, it's making up the difference overall. And if it ends up getting close to, 700, 800 million, Fox will be ecstatic about that. And Infinity War, again, as I mentioned, it's going to make $2 billion. It's closing in on that now. It's at 1.9 billion. 1.2 billion overseas, 627.6 in the US. So a tremendous number. So on the positive side, you have Avengers continue to do well. Deadpool's doing reasonably well. Negative side, Solo just doesn't cut it. And we all said that. Look, it was a Star Wars movie. I don't think anybody expected it to flop. It flopped. It did. And everybody that's gone and seen it has said it was a fairly decent movie. But as I said, you can get into the release date, you can get into the competition. Too quick a turnaround from Last Jedi. You can get into a lot of things. The backstage turmoil, changing directors. We can go on and on and on. We can go on and on and on. So now, as I mentioned earlier, next weekend, this coming weekend, first weekend of June, you do have 3 new releases, but nothing that's going to do huge business. The biggest release is a drama called Adrift from STX Entertainment, opening in 2,900 theaters, PG-13, starring Shailene Woodley and Sam Claflin. Now, a couple years ago, we had The Fall of Our Stars come out in June, Not much was expected of it, and did huge numbers. So maybe, you know, it's a romantic drama. Maybe it does something decent. I don't know. I don't expect it. It's not enough theaters, I think, to really be able to do anything big. The second biggest release is a comedy called Action Point from Paramount, opening in 2000 years, R-rated. $19 million budget. Again, it's from Johnny Knoxville. So, you know, those that like Jackass will probably come out to see this. Again, though, 2000 theaters, I wouldn't expect much from it. And you have Upgrade, a thriller from BH Tilt, opening in 1,400 theaters. Not much. Again, R-rated. Wouldn't expect much from it, honestly. If it makes $5 million, be happy. So Solo is probably going to take number one, even though it's struggling. It's going to crash, but it's going to probably take number one. I would say Solo number one for about maybe 30, 35 million. And I'll say Deadpool maybe around 17, 18. Avengers maybe around 13, 14, maybe 12. I'm going to say Adrift comes in at 10. Again, it could surprise everybody and be another Fault of Our Stars. I don't know. But I'll say Adrift at 10 million. Action Point maybe around 7 or 8. And an Upgrade probably around $3 or $4 million. Oh, forgot to mention, I would imagine Book Club will fall in that around $6.5, $7 million range. Should be right up there. Probably right above what do you call it? Right above Upgrade and like right around Action Point probably. And I don't think anything else will factor in above 5 million. So it should be. It'll end up being an okay box office weekend because of the holdovers, but don't expect anything much from the new releases. So we'll see. I mean, maybe, you know, there was some feeling that Solo picked up a little bit of momentum Sunday and Monday. So maybe we'll see how the second week numbers are. Again, you know, we with Deadpool, a lot of people went. I mean, nothing's going to save it internationally. But with Deadpool, after opening weekend, people were like, "Oh, no, this is, oh, it's not going to do well." But Deadpool has actually done pretty well at this point. Might not be doing as well here as you thought, but it's still doing well enough. So I wouldn't worry about that one. So we'll see what Solo does. It might not be. It might be a reverse thing. It might not do well overseas, but might do better well enough here. If it has a decent second weekend, then it might not be a total loss, but it's not gonna be near a profit like Disney would want it to be. That much is known. And it's definitely not going to be saved overseas. So, all right, so that's the box office beat. We'll move on from there. I put TV highlights, TV picks of the week in the show description. I really don't have any because there really isn't any new programming that I watched over the last week. And Mike's not here, and Mike would usually throw those out there. So I don't think we're going to be doing that. I'm probably going to just get rid of that from the show description over the next few weeks because there's nothing really on that I'm watching right now, and I don't think I'll have any recommendation if something pops up. If it does, I'll make sure to do it. But if he's not going to be on, usually Mike watches TV even when I don't. Watches different things and stuff, and he can bring stuff up. So with him not being here and with me not really watching too much in the way of new shows and stuff, probably no sense in doing it. So I put that in the show description. I apologize. I should have erased it. I didn't. So I don't really have anything to offer with that. So we'll leave that alone. We won't do anything with that for right now. We'll move on to other entertainment topics here. First off, let's do the Roseanne thing because like I said, I want to briefly touch on that without going political for a second. And again, don't want to go too far into it because I think there's not much you can say without getting too political about it. Obviously, I think by now people know what happened with that, and I got a lot of mail about that today. Obviously, so look, let me just state this: regardless of the reason, first of all, you got to give ABC a tremendous amount of credit for having the guts to do this, because to cancel a show that did that kind of audience, which outside of shows, if you think about the last 20 years of television, when's the last scripted show that you've seen pull in a number like that? That I mean, I guess you had some shows that had their final episodes pull in, I know, like that. I remember ER's last episode in 2009 did that. A number close to that. American Idol in its heyday pulled in close to that weekly. Um, but outside of reality shows and final episodes of stuff, think about the last scripted show that would pull in. You know what Roseanne did in its premiere for 18 million, and now I know by the time that its season ended, it was down to 10 million, and it was kind of evening out. But even 10 million for a sitcom nowadays. Think about those numbers. When's the last time um, that you saw a show pulling that kind of number? Because it's easily been probably since 2000. And again, we're not counting reality shows or sporting events or special events like Oscars and stuff like that. I mean, you think about the 90s, like back at Must See TV Thursdays and, TGI, that's when you used to see that kind of stuff. So we're talking mid 90s, mid to late 90s. And, there was, I mean, look, this whole reboot was controversial to begin with because of Roseanne, because of the figure that she was. So there's going to be people that say, well, why did they even try? And there's going to be people that are going to, go off on the cast and the crew for even going into this with her and saying, why would you even agree to do this? Because there were people that did that when they agreed to put the show on the air. And there were people today that criticized some of the actors for, well, why'd you sign up in the first place? Well, you can't act all outraged now. You shouldn't have ever been signed on in the first place. I think look, everybody knew who Roseanne was when they signed on. They all knew who Roseanne was. Nobody was blind to this. I think there was an expectation that she would stay in line, that she would keep, she wouldn't cause problems on social media in public. She'd be on her best behavior. Now, look, they knew she had her opinions. The show was the show did cause some problems during the season. It had some controversial things that happened, but you knew that was going to happen with this. But there's a difference between having that in the content of the show and having your star and producer go on social media and do what she did this morning or last night. And I don't think they expected that. I think they thought she'd stay away from that kind of stuff while she was doing the show, so that the show wouldn't have to kind of fend that kind of attention off. So when she didn't, they were caught between a rock and a hard place. And I'm sure Disney owning ABC was a big issue with it. And you also know too that Emma Kenny, who also is on Shameless as Debbie Gallagher, indicated on Twitter that she called the show to quit. Called her agent, told the agent to have her. She was going to quit the show if they continued on. Wanda Sykes, who was a producer, quit the show. People were quitting, so you knew that there were signs here before today that there might have been problems. And look, we know from the first time Roseanne was on that a lot of them had trouble working with her. So back then maybe they were able to tolerate it better, or maybe it was easier to deal with it somehow. Maybe now it's not. So for whatever reason, I'm not going to get into whether they did the right thing or the wrong thing. They feel like they did the right thing. I'm just going to say it took a lot of guts to do it. Took a lot of guts to do it because the show did huge numbers last year, even though it kind of crashed by the end. It was going to anchor its entire Tuesday night comedy block, which now they don't know what are you going to do there. So this is a huge deal. I mean, look, there are people you could there's one thing you could have done, which is you could have gotten rid of her and retooled the entire show. Which honestly, when I first heard this news this morning, that's what I thought they might do. I honestly thought they might do it, but maybe they felt like it would still, her presence would hover over the show. And that's probably why they decided to just cut ties with it. So again, it's a hot topic issue. I don't want to get into the politics of it or anything like that stuff. I don't want to do that. It was a shocking move. It was a gutsy move. And the only thing I would say is this. I don't necessarily agree with the idea of going after the cast and crew for agreeing to do the show to begin with. Because they looked at it as a job. There's probably, they all, for the most part, I think all get along. I think Roseanne's probably the most difficult person there. They probably figured, hey, you know what, we get to work, and if we have to just deal with her and the difficulties she brings, we did it the first time, we'll do it again. They're doing shortened seasons anyway. Probably figured they could get through it. So I don't fault them for doing it. And again, the network probably felt that they could deal with her, that they could deal with Roseanne, they could work around this, and that they could somehow, I won't say tame her, but keep her in line. And clearly they were wrong. It was a risk. The idea of doing the show in the first place was a risk. And today it ends with a huge, huge, huge gutsy move. So I give ABC credit for doing it. And they did it quickly and swiftly. Granted, people were probably quitting the show and everything. We know that for a fact, but who knows how many more of them were doing it. So maybe they felt like they weren't going to have a show anyway. But still, who would have thought that the show that was the breakout hit of this season it gets canceled? It was a crazy day with that news. Very, very crazy day. But you got to look again. They acted swiftly, and it's a gutsy move because they're gonna get some backlash from this. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they're gonna get backlash from it. So crazy, crazy, crazy news there. Crazy news. I didn't put this in the show description, but I'm gonna bring it up because some of our fans, I saw the emails before the show, asked me about them. They know I watch Walking Dead. So that's, I'm like a lot of people still do. I think barely people do at this point, if you saw the numbers. But obviously there's hidden in the Roseanne. I mean, if you go on Twitter, like 8 out of the 10 subtopics or trending topics for Roseanne, and then there's a little blurb on the bottom about Andrew Lincoln. Now we talked, I think maybe about a month and a half ago, about Lauren Cohen and how there was talk of her leaving The Walking Dead. Ultimately, she agreed to stay on. She's got her pilot got picked up by ABC. And there was an agreement made where she would come back to Walking Dead in a limited capacity. We now know it looks like she's only going to be in 6 episodes of season 9. And now there will be somebody else who will also be only appearing in 6 episodes of season 9. And that is Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick Grimes. He will only be in 6 episodes of season 9. As it was announced today that he will be leaving The Walking Dead. Now, we've talked over the last couple of years about the show struggling, ratings-wise and quality-wise, and how things have kind of fallen off. Coupled with this news today was the fact that Norman Reedus is apparently going to get a huge pay raise and become the lead on the show. He's already like the co-lead anyway, but still. Here's my thing, okay? I think what you're seeing over these last couple years for Walking Dead, I won't even say it's so much in terms of story, it's in terms of cast. They always know where they kind of want to go with the story, but they don't always know where they want to go with the characters. And I think that shows. Because if you think about the first few seasons of the show, Every time there was a death, it felt like it mattered. And then somewhere around season 5, it started to get to the point, aside from the Negan Lucille deaths with Glenn and Abraham, it didn't feel like the death mattered. Think about Beth and how nonchalantly they killed her character off. Think about Tyrese and think about Noah. And I know some of these actors quit, so you kind of had to find ways, around that. But that never stopped Walking Dead before. They'd always find a way to kind of make that death meaningful and make it impact the story and make it, and it felt like there was a plan. Now, yes, they have always had a plan. Oh yeah, this year we're doing all out war. This year we're doing this year. Yeah. But if you look at the characters, the trajectory, it just seems like it's almost going from half a season to half a season. They only can go that far. A character now, Carl Grimes, Chandler Riggs' character. Of course, they killed him off last year, right? Think about the way that went down. Think about that for a second. It was told that he was, at the time that they were filming episode 6 of season 8, okay? Which is 2 episodes before the episode where we find out that he got bit. He was told during that filming of that episode, or right before it, I should say, that they were killing off his character. Now, before somebody says, well, wait a minute, maybe they had planned that and they just didn't tell him till then. I don't know if I buy that. Because if you look at the season 8 premiere, which was the 100th episode, right? They had that scene of Rick and Carl, which seemed like a passing the torch kind of deal. And a character like Carl that was there from the original episode, from the first season, and who Robert Kirkman and everybody's been saying, oh, this is going to be Carl's, Rick's going to pass the torch to Carl. It's going to be Carl's, story and everything else. Would they have really not used Carl at all after the first episode of season 8 until episode 6 of season 8? And then not have him appear again until episode 8? He was only in 4 episodes of last season. 3 episodes before they killed him off. 2 of which he was barely in. There's no way that a character like that, if they were planning long term, gets that kind of exit. No way. The show plans the story, but doesn't plan for the characters. Because if they were planning and they knew whose contracts were up and they knew what was going on, there's no way they kill Carl when they think there's a chance that Andrew Lincoln is going out the door in season 9. Now, some people might say, well, maybe if Chandler Riggs had stayed, that Andrew Lincoln would be out the door. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know that. But, but the fact of the matter is a mess here. You're losing. You've already lost an original character, 2 original characters last year, Lenny James and Chandler Riggs. Their characters, Carl Morgan, gone. You're losing Lauren Cohen's Maggie, and you're going to lose Andrew Lincoln's Rick this year. And who knows who else you're going to lose this year. Because I suspect more will leave. You might keep Norman Reedus because you're throwing a boatload of money at him. But is it even going to matter at this point? Now, look, can the show still be good? They could find ways to make it good, but it ain't going to be the same. I never subscribe to the thinking that you just up and cancel a show because major characters leave. I've watched enough shows where major characters have left, including the de facto main character, and the shows have still found ways to be good after the fact. But never were they in a position like Walking Dead is right now, where the show is just in such a rut that you wonder if it's even if they even should bother. Because just when you thought things were getting at least slightly better at the end of the season, all this happens. And you find out you're going to lose 2 major characters. Should they even bother? There's a part of me that think, and I've said this off the air to a number of people, scrap it, end the show, and reboot because they didn't do it right the first time. I mean, that's the fanboy in me for the Walking Dead speaking, but maybe they should try something different. Reboot it, start again. Because even when the show was a good show, it still did a lot of things wrong. So it's a huge deal. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to be fascinated to see not only who else might leave. I think more people will leave, but how the show deals with this. I mean, it sounds like they knew about it, so they probably already have a plan. But I'm interested in seeing what that plan is, other than just handing the ball to Norman Reedus and letting him run with it. So we'll see what happens there. That was some big news today, kind of lost in all the Roseanne drama. All right, so that's all the entertainment stuff I wanted to touch on. I mentioned that we bring up some wrestling stuff, and we will really quickly here because, again, not much is going on. Raw last night was kind of filler. Obviously, you had the main event, women's gauntlet match. It came down to Sasha Banks, Ruby Riott. Sasha Banks won. She advances into the Money in the Bank match. You had more build with Nia Jax and Ronda Rousey, which was kind of interesting how Nia's a heel again. That kind of happened really overnight. The opening stuff with Owens, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor was interesting. I thought that stuff was really good. I like the way they're presenting Kevin Owens now. I like that they've kind of separated him from Sami Zayn a little bit. He's starting to become himself again a little bit and be his own person, character again. The Sami Zayn Bobby Lashley stuff was a waste. That fuse is terrible. We got a good match with Jinder and Seth Rollins. So all in all, it wasn't a bad show. It was one of the better Memorial Day shows in terms of actually having stuff going on that mattered. But it still was mostly filler. Again, a lot of time between Backlash and Money in the Bank, so they kind of have to fill it up. They still got 2 more weeks to fill. You could tell they're kind of spinning their wheels, just waiting for the pay-per-view. And then tonight on SmackDown, which was arguably the better show, you had lots of good stuff, lots of good movement, some good setup for next week, including Charlotte versus Becky Lynch, which would be great. The big stuff was Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, which ended up being a triple threat. That was supposed to be the main event. One-on-one match, and adding Big Cass to it, who got back into the fray this week from injury. Samoa Joe wins that match by submitting Daniel Bryan. He passed out in the Kachina clutch. So Samoa Joe goes to Money in the Bank, and now you know that Daniel Bryan will be facing Big Cass again in the singles match. And if you hear the reports, apparently WWE is being very careful with Daniel Bryan because they don't know if he's going to resign. Once he resigns, they'll commit to him and start doing some more stuff with him. So that's probably why he's toiling around with Big Cass and not really, doing anything huge right now. So, so you expect that Daniel Bryan Big Cass match to probably be announced next week. But Samoa Joe goes into the Money in the Bank match, and now we have our matches. We know who. Everybody that's qualified for Money in the Bank, and now we kind of have an idea of what this card is, and it looks like a pretty good card. Daniel Bryan, Big Cass doesn't excite me. That match at Backlash was kind of crappy, but, it is what it is. Jinder Mahal, Roman Reigns will be a thing. I imagine they're going to have Rollins, maybe defend against Elias, since they probably set that up last night. So that'll be a good match if they do that. What else do you got? The women's matches look like they're going to be, I don't know. I still don't think they're going to put the title on Ronda Rousey yet, so I expect no contest there. But I'm thinking Asuka's going to beat Carmella. So, and then you got the Money in the Bank matches, which should be interesting to say the least. So, with 2 weeks left, they got to kind of fill some time here, and they got a couple. I mean, like I said, Charlotte, Becky Lynch next Tuesday on SmackDown should be good. And they'll probably squeeze out a couple good matches between now and then. But otherwise, that's kind of how it's been on WWE TV over the last couple of weeks. You have a couple of good matches here and there, but like it's mostly filler, kind of like a waiting game right now. So once we get to Money in the Bank, I think things will pick up again. That's usually what happens. We're kind of in the post WrestleMania funk right now, but once you get to Money in the Bank, things will pick up as you go to SummerSlam. And that's because especially since they usually have some idea of WrestleMania in mind at that time too. So, like I said, there's not much to say about wrestling, so I kind of want to just go through and kind of give my thoughts on what's going on. Mike would probably contribute more to it than me, but But yeah, so not a fairly uninteresting Raw, not the worst Memorial Day edition, but fairly decent. Not, I mean, filler, but okay, decent fill, I should say. On the barbecue side, what team, B team, whatever they are, that was kind of stupid. But and then SmackDown, which I thought was okay tonight. So, um, yeah. So not much going on in WWE. Kind of a slow week. I think that'll be the case for the next couple weeks. Don't expect me to talk about that much. Because not much will be going on until Money in the Bank on June the 17th. And hopefully by that point we'll have Mike back so we can preview it. So again, I wanted to just quickly go through the wrestling stuff because again, not much going on there. So let's jump to sports here where there are things going on, and we do have some NBA to talk. Again, that'll be the only sports stuff we do tonight is NBA. And we got a couple of game sevens to recap and talk about here. So let's get right down to it. First of all, let me talk about before I get to last night's debacle, because that was one of the most horribly played game sevens that I think I've seen. Okay, and I'll talk about why in a moment. But let's first talk about Boston and Cleveland and how that went down on Sunday night, because that game, that game seven was actually, quality wise wasn't bad at all. First of all, obviously to get to the game seven, you give Cleveland a lot of credit for getting it that far. We talked about how big LeBron was. Now, if you look back at that game seven, which is what I want to focus on here, you look at how Boston started. They get the 8-point lead and going into the second quarter. You're feeling good about yourself. What happens to them after that first quarter? Because they got outscored in every quarter after that, especially the third. They got outscored in every quarter after that. What happened to them? Well, what happened was Cleveland started taking better shots. All right, because here's the thing: the Celtics defense is good, but if you can restrain yourself from taking bad shots, you can stay in a game against the Boston Celtics with no Kyrie Irving and no Gordon Hayward. You can. And that's really what Cleveland did. They just made better decisions, sound decisions. They took better shots. And the big thing, too, was somebody else showed up. Jeff Green showed up. Somebody else came to help LeBron James. They didn't have Kevin Love. And you thought, well, geez, that's it. I mean, Kevin Love's is the second best option they have, right? How does this work? How do they do this? How do they do it? Well, the answer is somebody steps up, and Jeff Green stepped up. And look, Jeff Green has had some great games with the Celtics way back when. And you have to be happy for a guy like Jeff Green to be able to do this. But he steps up with 19 points. Tristan puts in 10. You get 12 out of J.R. Smith. And that's the thing. That's the thing. LeBron puts in 35, but here's the thing you got to think about here. Okay, LeBron puts in 35, but you think about the 19 that Jeff Green gives you, the 10 that Tristan Thompson, that's 29 right there. And then 12, that's 41. So at least you got, I mean, it does, we tend to focus when we talk about Cleveland, well, somebody else has to help LeBron. And everybody thinks that necessarily means that you have to have another score come up and go, score 25 to 30. Maybe everybody just chips in a little bit. And if they chip in a little bit, that helps. Maybe you get a guy that puts in about 15, another guy that puts in about 10, another guy that puts in about 12. It adds up. It adds up. And that helps LeBron. Again, that's providing LeBron can put up 35 to 40 points a game, which seems like he's going to be able to do anyway. So, I think if Cleveland goes into each game And if I'm Teron Rue, if I'm LeBron James, I say to these guys, look, nobody has to put too much pressure on yourself. Now, they're probably not going to say anything to each other because they seem like they're all on the outs of each other. That team's a mess. The fact that they're in the finals and they're this much of a mess, it's a miracle in and of itself. But I digress. But if you were able to talk to them or you're able to get something, some kind of message imparted to any of these other guys, if I'm LeBron, if I'm Teron Rue, I say, you know what, guys? I don't need somebody to go out. I don't need one guy to go out there and score 30 to 40 points with LeBron. I don't need one guy to even score 20. If one guy just goes out there and has a double digit, if one or two guys go out there and have a double digit game along with what LeBron's going to do, and another couple guys chip in a few points here and there, we'll be okay if we play good defense, which they did. They played really good defense from the second quarter on in game 7. Really good defense. So if I'm them as they go into these finals, that's what I do. Because then you put less pressure on yourself and and I think that you don't see guys doing too much and making ill-advised decisions and trying to force things because they feel like they have to be the hero. The only guy on this team that should be playing hero ball is LeBron James at this point. So that's the way I would play it if I'm Cleveland. But LeBron was incredible in this series. I don't like what people are saying about this being his greatest achievement. Okay, okay, you won the Eastern Conference Finals. Here's the thing, folks, okay? I heard a lot about Indiana and how they beat them. I heard a lot about Toronto and how he beat them. I heard a lot about now the Celtics, how he beat them. The Celtics had a hell of a run. And Brad Stevens you've heard me defend Brad Stevens. I think he's the best coach in the NBA right now, other than Greg Popovich. Okay? But this is still a Celtics team without its two best players. This is still a Celtics team that is very, very young. That Toronto Raptors team that Cleveland swept was a Toronto Raptors team that they've owned for the last 3 seasons. LeBron James has been able to take them down himself the last 3 seasons. The Indiana Pacers team was good, but this is their breakout year. Again, they're young. I know that we look at this Cleveland team and go, wow, how are they doing this? This is not a Cleveland team that we expect anything from, LeBron James. But this team is not that bad. If this Cleveland team beat a Boston Celtics team that had Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving on the floor along with Jason Tatum, God bless you, then I would have said this was a big deal. I'm not saying it's okay, I shouldn't say it's a big deal. But I don't think it's the best thing LeBron's done. LeBron's done bigger things than this. He led a team back from 3 games to 1 down when they won their first championship in Cleveland. Now, I granted that people say, well, he had Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love both there. I don't care. It's still accomplishment. Game 6 back in 2012 or 2013. That was a bigger deal to me. Now, if he goes and wins these finals against Golden State, and I don't care, people are going to go on about how Golden State's not the same team, and they're not. But if he goes in against Golden State and wins, if he leads them to a championship this year, okay, if he completes this, then I would say that's the best thing he's ever done. The most impressive thing he's ever done. It's the Eastern Conference Finals. Why are we acting like he won an NBA championship? You don't accomplish nothing by just getting to the finals. I'm sorry. How does that trump coming back from 3 games to 1 down and winning a championship? How in the world does that trump that? How? When you're playing a weekend Celtics team, I think the problem is that the Celtics played so well in this postseason, especially at home, that people started to believe that, well, they're just as good without these two players. No, they're not. The Celtics looked like garbage on the road. They didn't look like the same team on the road. The Celtics were a good team without Hayward and Irving. Yes, they're a great team with them. Cleveland wouldn't have beat them if Irving and Hayward were on the floor. So, in all honesty, acting like this is some impressive feat is totally ridiculous to me until he wins a championship. If he goes and plays Golden State and he wins a championship, then fine. That's a huge deal. But no, think about the teams he beat: a young Indiana team, a young Celtics team without their two best players, and a Toronto team he's owned for his entire career. It's an is it a big deal? Should you give him some credit for it? Yes. But to act like it's the most impressive thing he's done, like I've been hearing for the last 2 days, no, that doesn't work. No. Give him credit for what he's done. If he completes this, they win 4 more games and they win an NBA championship, then yes, absolutely, I will agree with that. But not until then. Not until then. As for the Celtics, you give them a tremendous amount of credit for what they did. Brad Stevens is a hell of a basketball coach. This is a hell of a team. When they have Haywood and they have Irving next year, it's going to be sky the limit with them next year. They're ready. They'll take a lot from this experience. Tatum became a star in this postseason. They've got to learn to play better on the road, but that will come with experience because that's a youth thing. You can tell. But you got to give them a tremendous amount of credit because, once Irving went down, they could have folded. They did not fold. They came within 1 game in the NBA Finals and only lost by 8 in that Game 7. So a tremendous amount of credit you give the Celtics for what they've done. So good season for them. Now, the other Game 7. Obviously, Golden State forced it. You can make a lot of points about the way Houston handled Game 6. I thought they handled it poorly. I know they didn't have Chris Paul. Losing Chris Paul, obviously, a tremendous loss. You feel bad for him. He feels like he's cursed at this point. Either he tends to get hurt or somebody on his team tends to get hurt every time he, is in the playoffs, it seems. Now the concern you had with no Chris Paul was you thought, well, who's going to handle the ball? Who's going to make the plays? Well, the onus falls on James Harden to be that playmaker. And you worry about that because we've talked about it over the years. James Harden, much like Chris Paul when he's healthy, because even when Chris Paul's been healthy, he hasn't always shown up in big games and big situations. But James Harden, we've seen time and time again, going back to the days of Oklahoma City, where he would go missing or fold in crunch situations, in big situations. And then you worry when you add the idea that he's going to be the only playmaker, a big playmaker on the floor without Chris Paul. When you add that to it, you worry about what was going to happen. Was this going to be a complete disaster? And it turns out it was. When things got tough, both in Game 6 and Game 7, it became a mess. Now, it wasn't all his fault. It wasn't all his fault. It was you could argue coaching was a situation in both Game 6 and Game 7. You could argue a lot of things. I would say this, though. What you saw with Houston in Game 6 against the Warriors, first of all, the Warriors killed teams in the third quarter. All right. Now, if I wasn't a fan of the Warriors, okay, I would be annoyed with them because the Warriors do something that a lot of teams do that I hate, which is they can line the weeds for an entire half of basketball and then wake up in the second half, blow the doors off, and then win the game. I don't like that. I prefer teams to play complete games or try to play complete games. I don't like it when it seems like a team half-asses a first half. And I do feel like they do that now. I felt like that this whole season. They've been their own worst enemy all season long. The injuries have been one thing, but even when they've been healthy, you could tell that they kind of are complacent. And I think that a lot of it's that, I think a lot of it is that they believe that, what, hey, we're good enough. We're going to get there. We're good enough. We'll get out of it. It'll always come up rosy for us. And it always does. Usually. But it annoys me. And I mean, I'm a fan of them, so maybe it annoys me less than most people. But regardless, um, it's it's something that you think after the season they're gonna have to figure out a way to get around it and fix it because they ain't go. Eventually, it's gonna come back to bite you. Probably won't this year, but in the future. But anyway, going back to the Rockets in Game 6, the Warriors just came out in the third quarter. They now the Rockets had them on the road. They were right there. Golden State just wakes up in the third and kind of blows the doors off, and then you see what happens when things get tough. Things start to get forced for Houston. They force shots. Harden forces passes. Everything just kind of comes apart. Fast forward to Game 7. The same thing happens in Game 7. Only worse because of what happened with the 3-point shot in Game 7. Now we know if you've watched the Houston Rockets this year, you know how important the 3-point shot is to the Houston Rockets. Okay? However, I'm going to read you some numbers right now, okay? And I think they're going to speak for themselves. All right? So let's look at the Houston Rockets stat line right now. From 3-point land last night, okay? From 3-point land, Houston was 7 for 44. That's 15.9% from 3. Okay? Their field goal percentage, 36 for 90, 40%. So what does those numbers tell you? Because obviously if you watched the game last night, you know that the theme was how badly they were shooting from 3. But the consensus was, well, this is what they do. They have to keep chucking them up. This is their game. Is it though? Because here's the thing. You're in a Game 7 of a playoff series. You're going win this game at home. You're going to the finals. You had a lead at the half. You were up at the half. You were up 54. So was it 54-44 at home? Now we all know what Golden State does in the third quarter, but you had this game in hand. You're not making threes. Why would you keep trying to shoot them? I don't care if that's been your game all season. And I know people are like, well, this is what you got in here doing. So why should you change it now? Maybe because not a single guy on the damn team last night could buy a freaking 3. When collectively nobody can make a 3, why are you still taking them when the other team is blowing the doors off you at home in the third quarter? At the very least, you go away from it for a little bit. Go to the basket. Honestly, during that whole barrage that Golden State had going on, the third and the fourth, when Houston went to the basket, guess what? They were making the baskets. They were making 2s left and right. They were getting to the line. And don't get on me for the referees, because the referees were bad for both. They weren't calling anything for anybody. So don't say that's the reason Houston lost, because that wasn't the case. The reason why Houston lost was because maybe it was the head coach. I don't know who it was. Players, probably the head coach, most of it. But somebody decided to commit to chucking up 3s on every possession. 7. Where's the number again? 7 for 44. 15.9% from 3. And you shot 40% from the field. Take a 2. I mean, it's not rocket science. If nobody on your team can make the shot, go to the basket. James Harden is not just a shooter. He goes to the rim. He is a great attack the basket player. Why isn't he going to the rim? when your team needs points. When Golden State is going crazy from three, when Stephen Curry is making circus shots, you're deciding to keep trying to answer it. If it doesn't work on the next 2 or 3 possessions, do something else. I blame Mike D'Antoni for a lot of it because he could have said something and stopped it. Then again, if it's, we know, I know it's not as much of a thing in basketball as it is in baseball, but sabermetrics is a thing. I know that a lot of times they tell these players, hey, this is our game plan. We got to stick to it. Don't veer from it. I'm sure maybe that's part of it in Houston where they go, hey, this is how many 3-point shots we got to take a game. This is how many we should get this kind of percentage every game if we take this many shots. If that's the case, if that's what's going on here, it's like, hey, you know what? Don't veer from the game plan. Don't veer from the game plan. You're telling the coach, no matter what happens, don't veer from the game plan. Well, that's just idiotic. And it's an example of why sabermetric crap needs to be out of sports in general, because it doesn't help every situation. It's helpful, but it shouldn't be the end all, the be all in terms of decision making in game. It should never be that. And if that's part of the reason why Houston would not veer from taking threes last night, well, that's the reason why they lost. You don't see Golden State do that anymore, do you? They used to way back when. They didn't do that last night. It wasn't all threes last night. They attacked the basket. If they don't make shots, they go to the rim. That's what you do. That's what you're taught as a basketball player. You're taught if you can't make the big shot, start attacking the rim. That's basic basketball. I don't care what your sabermetric team is telling you. I don't care what if your head coach is telling you to keep chucking up shots, then that's ridiculous. Because as long as I've known basketball, played basketball, know people that play the game, watch the game, I never would hear a coach say that. It would always it's about adjustments. You make adjustments in the game. If things aren't working, you make adjustments. I know that oftentimes the belief is you go down with what got you there. But not like that. Not when you have options. You have options. You do have guys that can go to the rim. Now when the game is slipping away and the other team, when Golden State's going crazy offensively, you've got to try to stem the tide. Get some points on the board. Make an adjustment. Change the plan a little bit. Attack the rim. Draw some fouls. Stop the momentum. It was terrible basketball. Golden State played an awful first quarter. And Houston played an awful second half. They gave the game to the Warriors. Golden State had to make some great shots, granted them, but Houston should have had a lot more fight. And I'm not saying they gave up because they didn't really give up, but they may as well have by doing what they did from three, by continuing to chuck up shots. Because that was an embarrassment in terms of basketball play. And like I said, I don't know if they did this for sure. When I sat there and I watched Mike D'Antoni and I watched his face every single time that they chucked up a three after 3 quarters of seeing that the team was struggling from three. Every time I saw Mike D'Antoni on the sideline, all I saw was a guy that's like, well, this is the game plan. I can't veer away from it. This is what we are. And if that's the case, if that's because some schmuck in the Numbersville told the coaching staff that, hey, no matter what happens, keep chucking because eventually we're going to make them, then that's ridiculous to me. And that's the reason why I hate sabermetrics in all sports. Because while they're nice sometimes, they can be helpful in some decisions. In a situation like that, they can get you in a lot of trouble. And if you stick to them, they can cost you the game and your season. Their numbers are helpful, but they're not the end all, the be all. Your eyes show you more. And if you watched that game last night, you know what the game tells you? It's not happening tonight. We're not making threes. It's not our night. Go to the rim. That's what that tells you. Because here's the thing. Yes, 3 points 3-point shots are a big part of Houston's game. But when you think of Houston and Mike D'Antoni, even though threes are a big part of their game, I think more about the high-octane offense in general, not necessarily just taking threes. I think about getting to the rim, speeding up the game. Here's the thing about this, folks. Golden State, this is the thinnest Golden State team that they've had in a long time. Andre Iguodala's hurt. They do not have the bench they once did. Sometimes they're running on fumes, okay? If Houston had said, you know what, to hell with taking these threes and giving Golden State a break and getting them long rebounds and runouts and stuff like that, if Houston had said, let's just speed up the game, let's attack the rim and then see if things open up for us and see what happens. Because sometimes, here's the thing, if you go to just attacking the rim for a little bit, sometimes that can help you make more threes down the road in the game. Gives you a little bit of momentum. But if you do that, you speed up the game, you might have Golden State on their heels. They might foul you, might get in even more foul trouble than they already were in, or it makes them more tired, tires them out, has them running on fumes. That's what I'm saying. There were things that Houston could have done last night to win that game. They had it. Without Chris Paul, they had it last night. They probably could have had it in Game 6 too, but more so last night. It was a deplorable performance by Houston in that second half. And Mike D'Antoni too, because he, I don't care what nut job in your analytics department says you got to stick to this. You got to stick to this. I would have said the hell with it. We're attacking the rim. This is what we're doing. Speeding up the game. 3 points is part of our offense, but it isn't our offense. We're up and down the floor, high octane offense. That's the game I play. That's the game I play. Let's attack the rim, and then hopefully we can get some threes later on in the game to blow this game open. That's what I would have done. Bad coaching on his part, not putting an end to that debacle in that second half. And if Houston's, whether the analytics department or somebody else was in on that saying, hey, we got to stick to this, keep taking threes, then bad on you too. And also James Harden, who, as the floor leader, as the guy on that team without Chris Paul, look, and even with Chris Paul on the floor, he's still the guy. Chris Paul just becomes the floor guy, but this is James Harden's team, let's be honest. Harden has yet to learn how to keep the team composed on the floor when things get tough. He disappears. He doesn't lead. He doesn't get the team on the same page. He doesn't get them composed, doesn't get everything. You could tell the team's getting rattled. The other Golden State's on a run. You could tell he doesn't know how to handle those situations. He folds. He disappears. Chris Paul has done that at times too, but Chris Paul wasn't on the floor last night. He was, and he didn't show up again. Game 6 and Game 7, when things got tough, he folded again. And his legacy still remains tarnished with that. Him and Chris Paul both have got to show that they can lead and they can have big performances when things get tough in big situations. And they've yet to do that. Chris Paul has to stay on the floor first. But Harden, been on the floor for a lot of it. And just can't get the job done. So this falls on him too. And from my understanding, both Chris Paul and James Harden didn't really do too much shaking of hands last night, which I'm not always a big proponent, but when the rest of the team does and you don't, it makes you look bad. So that doesn't look very fondly on them. But terrible performance by Houston. I don't want to take away anything from Golden State. Golden State played a bad first quarter. Kerr was right. Played a bad first quarter. And again, I said, they're their own worst enemy this year. When Golden State is focused and they turn it on, they're hard to beat. We know that. Even with the fact they're not the same team as they once were. But boy, once they got going, and granted, Houston helped them with the bad shooting and everything else. Boy, once they got going that third quarter, outscoring them 33-15 in that third quarter. Once they got going, man, it was something to watch. It was crazy that some of the shots they were making. I mean, but that's a champion for you. They got the experience. They don't give up. They keep fighting, and if you leave them a crack, they come right back. And going forward, I think going to next season, I mean, obviously we got the finals left for Golden State, but going next season, you think that they maybe hopefully learn a lesson from the season that they can't keep playing like this because might not hurt them in the finals, but boy, next year could hurt them. They've been lucky to get away with it as much as they have, but Golden State gets away with it, moves on. They fight out of the Western Conference Finals. They move on to a date once again with the Cleveland Cavaliers for the fourth straight year. Now, Houston, you give them credit, great season. We'll see what they do, and they'll probably go after LeBron. Don't think they need him, but they'll probably go after him. But great season for them, and again, same song, different verse. They go into next season wanting to beat the Warriors. And with James Harden, who needs to prove himself, who knows if they even have Chris Paul back. He's a free agent. So we'll see what happens there. That'll be something to watch going forward. Might not be the same Rocket team next year. So they might, I mean, that's why this year was so important for them. So, but great, they had a great season. They really did. They shocked me, and they shocked me by getting as far as they did. But again, when it mattered most, they kind of folded. Harden did. And maybe Paul would have too if he was on the floor. Just sucks that he can't stay on the floor to kind of prove himself because that's really what happens to him every playoffs. He just like he's cursed or something. It's horrible. So good year to Houston. Golden State moves on. Golden State Cleveland starts Thursday night, 9:00 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Golden State will have the home court. Obviously, the story going in is going to be, nobody's going to give Cleveland a chance here. Obviously, everybody's going to go into this with the idea that LeBron's kind of the Cinderella story. Can he complete this amazing journey? If he does, then yes, I'll think that'd be the most impressive thing he's ever done. Obviously, another undercurrent of this will be if Cleveland wins, does he stay in Cleveland? If Cleveland loses, does he leave? Does he leave regardless of what happens? Does he stay regardless? I mean, there's a lot of things going on with that. Will Kevin Love be able to play game one? Will he be out of concussion protocol? That's another part of it. Who else will step up? Will Jeff Green keep stepping up? Tristan Thompson? I mean, that Cleveland's going to need guys to step up. That's going to be the key to this series. As I said, and I mentioned earlier, I think if Cleveland goes into every game, okay, LeBron gets his 35 to 40, but if the other guys can each chip in, if you get one or two other guys chip in double digits and everybody else kind of chip in a little bit, that could be enough if your defense plays well. That's really what Cleveland's got to do to win this, to have a chance here. Golden State, Golden State is what they are. They've been their own worst enemy. Look, I think Golden State's going to win this series. I think Golden State really probably should sweep this series. I don't think they will. That's for one reason, because they're going to half-ass their way through a game or two, probably on the road, and they're probably going to lose a game or two because of it. And because of that reason, I think they'll win in either 5 or 6, as opposed to sweeping it. If they don't do that, they go into every game laser focused. They can sweep this thing, and it could be over by the next week. So, we'll see. But I'm picking Golden State to win. I'll say Golden State in 5. I think I don't know if Cleveland will quite get 2, but I think they'll get at least 1. I'll say Golden State in 5. So, and we'll see where the chips fall for Cleveland. I think even if it ends up being a short series, a sweep or a 5-game series, I still think it's going to be interesting to see what LeBron does and how these teams react to each other for the 4th time and all that. And also, a key to this is Andre Iguodala. Will Andre Iguodala play? If Andre Iguodala plays, it makes it even easier for Golden State. It makes them deeper. If he doesn't, then, they have the same problem they've had for a little while here. But yeah, I'm picking Golden State and I would pick Golden State in 5. If not 5, I think he'll get in 6. So it should be an entertaining NBA Finals at the very least, whether it's a short series or not. All right. So, and one more quick thing I forgot to mention. Somebody just asked me it too. How I felt about the Kyrie Irving thing, that he didn't stay on the bench for Game 7 in Boston when they against the Cavs. Mark Jackson called attention to it on the call. I like that he did. I know he had nasal surgery. You know, he's been there kind of off and on. He should have been there. I don't like that he wasn't there. I mean, you know, I think his presence would have been needed. It would have been great, beneficial, because this is a young team, and you know his leadership skills could have been. I mean, he's been there. He's been to Game 7s. He's been deep into the playoffs. He would have been an invaluable source of knowledge for some of these guys to have him there. But it's also not something he can't do over the phone, or they might not have done. You know, it's not also something that he might not have done already. But still, I think he should have been there. I don't know if it should have been an outrage like Mark Jackson was kind of going off on the call. But yeah, I think he should have been there. I think it was in bad form that he wasn't. But I'm not quite as outraged by it as some other people are. So I don't like it, but I don't. It's not something that makes me go crazy. So there's a lot of other things that Kyrie Irving's done that makes me go crazy. So you know, but I just want to announce that because somebody asked my opinion on it was. So all right, so that's it. We got through everything. Again, NBA Finals start Thursday. Obviously, we'll talk about it as we go along here. So we look forward to that. And then, of course, you know, we'll do all usual stuff as well as we go along. But for those that want NBA Finals stuff, we will obviously do that. And obviously, there'll be a couple shows where we're probably on the air opposite that. So we'll do live updates and all that kind of stuff. So like we've done all along. Anyway, with that being said, we are done for the night. As always, we might be done, and the show might be over, but that does not mean you have to stop interacting and contributing with us. Continue to have your voice heard. Send us your feedback, questions, opinions, comments, topic ideas related to sports or breaking news items related to sports, entertainment, or wrestling you want us to cover. Feedback, questions about the show, scheduling the show, any of these things you can do by email, Facebook, and Twitter. Email, again, itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at itspotlight411. Remember to use the hashtag itspotlight411 for anything you tweet regarding our show. And of course, you can find us on Facebook. Just search In the Spotlight 411 on Facebook, and then make sure that you like our fan page. Again, please follow us on social media so you can get the latest information about the show, especially when it comes to last minute postponements or delays or any big news, and also any other random stuff we happen to post. And you can interact with us as well if you follow us on social media. So make sure that you follow us on social media so you can do all that and have access to all that and more. You can, again, find us on Facebook. Just search In the Spotlight 411 and make sure you like our fan page, and then follow us on Twitter at itspotlight411. And then whenever you tweet us, make sure, or tweet at us, make sure you use at itspotlight4, make sure you use hashtag itspotlight411. That way it helps promote us, and it makes it easier to find your tweets and all that good stuff. 2 ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. You can either stream us anytime on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411, and you'll have access to every episode you've ever produced, from Google Plus and YouTube. That's every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's current episode. Those episodes are available for you to stream anytime you want. So every episode from mid-October 2015 all the way up to tonight's episode available for you to stream anytime you want on Google Plus and YouTube. Just search In the Spotlight 411. If you're interested in older episodes of the show, maybe streaming is not your thing, maybe you prefer to listen to us or listen to us on the go, or you're interested in older episodes of the show, if any of that applies to you, you can check us out on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes, to search for In the Spotlight 411. And when you do, you'll be taken to our show pages on both sites. We will have access to every episode we've ever produced in the nearly 8 years we've been doing the show. So it's every episode from our original run on Blog Talk Radio from October 2010 and January 2011, all of our talk show episodes from January 2011, all the way up to mid-October 2015, and all of our Google Plus and YouTube episodes from mid-October 2015, all the way up to tonight's current episode. All those episodes transfer into audio format for your convenience. Every episode that we've ever had is transferred into audio format for your convenience. So every episode from day one, October 2010, all the way up to tonight's episode, it's an audio format. You can listen to it on the go, listen to it anytime. Whether you miss an episode, miss a part of an episode, want to check out an episode from way back when for the first time or again, or check up on current episodes. You can do all that and more on our main host sites, Podbean and iTunes. To search In the Spotlight 411. Again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Again, Google Plus, YouTube, Podbean, iTunes. Your ways to keep up with the show and look back at classic episodes. Search for In the Spotlight 411. All those sites. And search for In the Spotlight 411. on all of those sites. No Mike tonight, so we don't. But we'll give a shout out to him. Hope everything works out for him, his job and everything, and we'll hope we see him back soon. I want to thank myself for another great show. Pat myself on the back. And thank all of you for your continued support and contributions to the show. Thank you so much for watching. To those that will be watching, listen to this later, thank you to you as well. That is it for tonight, and that is also it for this week. I hope, by the way, I didn't say this at the beginning of the show, but I hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend and everything was great for you. So, and hope your week is treating you well so far. I didn't say at the beginning. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, with that in mind, I hope you all have a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and a great start to your week next week. We'll see you back here 1 week from tonight for our first show of June. That's right, it'll be June. How to believe? We usually have vacation this time of year. It's kind of weird, but anyway, yeah, our first show of June next Tuesday. Again, we're still on summer schedule, so only one show a week as we go through the summer. That'll be again next Tuesday. Most of these shows will be on Tuesday unless otherwise noted. So just keep up to date. Follow us on social media so that you don't get blindsided by any news that last minute cancellations and stuff. But for the most part, they should be all on Tuesdays here through the summer. So yeah, next show a week from tonight. That's June the 5th. Broadcasting and streaming live here on YouTube at 9 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have the box office beat, any other big entertainment stuff we have to cover, any wrestling stuff, big wrestling headlines, wrestling stuff we have to cover. We'll talk NBA Finals, any other sports stuff, any of that. We'll have any big sports stuff that comes out, we'll talk about. So our usual mix of sports, entertainment, and wrestling coming at you next Tuesday, June the 5th, 9 o'clock Eastern time here, streaming live on YouTube. So until then, I hope you have a great night and a great rest of the week. We'll see you back here 1 week from tonight on June 5th, 9 o'clock Eastern time here on YouTube live. Until then, good night, everybody.